Thank you everyone for joining. Just want to let you know that we'll get started in a few minutes. We're going to give just a little bit more time for folks to join this meeting.
Gracias a todos por unirse. Quería hacerles saber que vamos a esperar unos minutos más para que más personas se puedan unir a la reunión antes de empezar.
I see a few more folks have joined. Maybe we can get started at least with our housekeeping slides and get the interpretation instructions set up. So welcome everybody. As I mentioned, we'll just spend a few minutes reviewing our housekeeping and logistics slides before we jump into the meeting. So at this time, I would like to invite, I'm not sure, Tanya or Diana, would one of you like to give the instructions?
Yes, thank you, Liz. Buenas tardes a todos. El día de hoy tenemos el servicio de interpretación disponible para aquellas personas que lo requieran. Si se están uniendo desde su computadora, en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom van a ver un icono que parece un mundo que dice interpretación o interpretation. Lo pueden seleccionar y luego seleccionamos el idioma español y silenciar el audio original para que no escuchen dos voces a la vez y puedan escuchar solo la interpretación del inglés al español. Y si se están conectando desde una tableta o desde un dispositivo móvil, pueden tocar su pantalla. Seleccionamos los 3 puntos, interpretación de idiomas o language interpretation. Seleccionamos nuevamente el español y silenciar el audio original. Y al finalizar, terminado, finalizado o listo. Y ahora voy a dar las mismas instrucciones, pero en inglés. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll have interpretation available for those who need it. If you're joining from a computer, at the bottom of the Zoom menu, you will see a word-like icon that says interpretation. You can select it and then select English. And if you're joining from a tablet or your mobile, you can tap your screen, select the 3 dots, select language interpretation again, select English, and at the end, finish or done. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Diana. Tim, I see you're unmuted. Do you have a question, or is anyone having problems with the interpretation?
No, I'm sorry. I kind of clicked it when I was moving.
No problem. Okay, so it looks like our interpretation is working, but do let us know at any point if you're having issues. We will make sure to pause the meeting so that everybody is able to listen in and participate. So we'll move forward in our logistics slides. Here we have our virtual meeting etiquette. So we asked for everyone to stay muted unless you are planning to speak. And if you are calling in, you can mute by pressing *6. We also ask for folks who have a question or any comments they would like to share, please raise your Zoom hand so that we can call on you. And if you are calling in on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. On this slide, we have a review of our group agreements. We go through these at every CSC meeting and in our subcommittee meetings as well. I won't read through all of them, but these are all here to help us have productive discussion and respectful dialogue. I'll just emphasize that we are all here to find solutions. We ask for folks to not attack the person and direct comments at the problem, and really recognize the humanity and dignity that we all have here together. And ultimately, we are here to seek common ground. Building consensus and finding our shared values will help us all achieve the best result. I have our agenda on this slide here. So we will have our welcome and introductions as usual. and we'll have a review of the action items tracker. Then our main agenda item for this evening is the pesticide monitoring discussion. After that, we will hear some agency updates, and then we will open it up for any final comments and reviewing our next steps. So I'll stop sharing my screen and just want to welcome everybody again, and thank you so much for being here at the 9th Arvin Lamont Pesticide Subcommittee. My name is Liz, and I am one of the Harder & Company facilitators, and I am joined here by Vanessa, who is also on our facilitation team. Some might recognize her from the Shafter CSC. So we are both honored to be your facilitators for this meeting. At this point, I would love to invite our co-leads to share any opening remarks. And I do see, I believe, both Bianca and Cesar here. So maybe we can start with Bianca.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very excited to see all the work being transparent on the pesticide work. I know that this is an open discussion for the monitoring and the study that's going to happen in a couple of weeks, and excited to see what communities view this amazing work between CARB, DPR, and even the Ag Commissioner. So I appreciate every single one of them that are here in representing each agency and making the changes in the community. Thank you.
Yeah, and just echoing the thanks from Bianca for all the community folks and regulators being here. I think this is a very timely meeting, seeing as communities, especially the ones in close proximity, usually deal with like pesticide issues and dust from shaking. And it starts right around this time. So thank you all for being here and for having this dialogue.
Thank you both for setting the stage for this really important meeting. At this time, I'd like to invite Jessica from the Air District to share any opening remarks.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks, Bianca and Cesar. I want to echo the welcome for all of you and just remind us once again how great of an interagency partnership this has turned out to be. We're going to have a presentation from CARB, but all of the work that's been done to this point, really over the past couple of years, really includes all of you on this call. That's CARB, that's the Ag Commissioner, that's DPR, that's OEHA, that's the community as a whole. Each one of you has had a part to play over the past year to get to what's really sort of a milestone that we're going to talk a little bit about today. So we're really excited about it and really grateful for all of you working with us the past couple of years. And I'm excited for today. So thank you, Liz, and we can move on. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. And thank you again to all of our agency partners for being here. I am happy to move us along in the agenda. So next we have a review of our action items tracker, and I believe I'm passing it to Eric.
Hi, Liz. Thank you. Yes, this is Eric, your community liaison. I'll go ahead and just quickly read off the action item. We just have one. During our last CSC meeting, so our March meeting, I know DPR was asked to give an update on the 1,3-D regulatory changes for farm workers, and we have they have completed that, and I will provide a link to some of those changes for the Risk Management Directive, or the RMD, which was released in March 2024. And that is our one and only action item. I'll go ahead and pass it to Jess. I know Jess is going to go over our commitment tracker as well in this time.
Thanks, Eric. As we've done with each one of these meetings, just a reminder, it's a little different. We've done a lot of action item tracking in our big CSC meetings where we have a lot of various things to track. In these meetings, we like to go back. There's so many measures in like sub measures in the SERP that we want to make sure that we're meeting all of them. There are a lot of different commitments from a lot of different folks in the SERP, and we're just going to talk a little bit really briefly and highlight for you today kind of where we stand. So as a reminder, there are kind of 5 buckets of commitments. So the larger commitment is here on the left, and then within each commitment, there are actions. This is just a copy straight from the SERP. And so we'll definitely continue to share this and just be transparent about where we're at and transparent about who's responsible for each item, and also talk about when we discussed the item during which subcommittee. So really leading up to today's discussion, we started with sort of a ground truthing or understanding of what pesticides were being used in Arvin, Lamont, and talking with DPR and the Ag Commissioner about the frequency of the pesticide use, where they were being used, how much was being used. And that really led to developing an approach for understanding how we can get to the monitoring piece. It's hard to monitor unless we know what we're going to monitor and when we want to monitor. And I know that Carb will go over that a little bit later today. And so the next piece that I'm highlighting for you today is one of the next big commitments was then actually doing the monitoring. And there are a lot of actions I know we'll talk a little bit about today that will happen after the monitoring actually occurs. And so those are still the commitments that are going to be ongoing with the various agencies. But in the meantime, the very first biggest piece for monitoring is actually doing the monitoring. So that's where we're at today. And that's why that's highlighted as a really big milestone today. As a reminder, I'm not going to go through them all because it's sort of unrelated to our discussion today, but I'll just really briefly share on the screen all of the other commitments that are related to pesticide notification that we've had various discussions on. Even though these are ongoing commitments and they are not yet complete, we definitely continue to bring updates to you all, sometimes actually during the regular CSC meeting. Additionally, statewide regulatory developments, including quick updates like the ones today, will continue to bring to you, and any updates that we have for you will continue to send out. And then finally, one of the ones that we've been talking about, but we certainly haven't talked about in a while, and maybe just to flag for our next subcommittee, is to talk about sustainable pest management. It's something that we've included in the SERP as a commitment, and definitely something that maybe now that we've checked a big box and getting monitoring going, we can go back to some of the other commitments. So we just wanted to be open and transparent. Given time at the end of today's agenda, we can bring this up and talk about next meeting if we have time. Otherwise, we can work with you all over the next couple months to plan our next meeting. So with that, I just want to thank you all for being here, and I'm really excited to get going on one of our biggest commitments in the SERP. Any questions for myself or for Eric? All right. Well, I am here. And like I said, we can bring that up given time at the end if folks want to talk about planning for our next meeting. Thanks, Liz.
This is Liz. Thank you so much for reviewing the action item and the commitment tracker. Just looking at the dates on the tracker, seeing how far back it goes. It's just exciting to see where we are now and all of the progress. So I'm happy to move us to our main discussion, and that is the pesticide monitoring update and presentation from CARB. And I believe Michelle will be giving the presentation, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion. Yeah, take it away, Michelle.
Great, I will. I'm going to, hang on one second. I'm going to share my screen. Find the right thing here I want to do. Portion of the screen, that's what I want to do. Not that portion though. Hang on. I can get you here. All right, I'm going to narrow this down so you can see it a little bigger, hopefully. All right. How's that looking for people?
That looks great to me.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, so I'm Michelle. I am happy to be here with you all, and I'm going to tell you why you're going to be happy too. I hope. So yeah, I'm with the State Air Resources Board, just a quick reminder. And I work with James Pham, who usually does these presentations about the monitoring for pesticides. And the good news is he is in the field at this moment deploying monitors in your community. So that's super, super exciting. I have a little bit of a report out from him that things are going really well. I'll give all the information, but I just just a quick preview that things are going well and all on track so far. All right, so I just have this is just a very brief update on the monitoring and how it's going. And let me go to the next slide. So we're just gonna quick go over what it is we're doing, why we're doing it. So the context behind this is that as a community, you all decided in previous meetings, a few different meetings actually, we discussed and then decided that these are the two compounds that we were going to monitor for, the 1,3-D and the MITC. So we also, in our discussions, we decided we would monitor for these compounds during their highest use periods. So these use periods were chosen based on historical data for the last few years. I think it was 2019 through 21 that we used. And so these, we'll be monitoring these compounds for 13 continuous weeks. And I'll give you in a moment, I'll show you a little graph of what weeks we chose. And then, like I said, James is out in the field in the locations that the community suggested. And he's working on putting in 2 of the locations that are already secured. There's one in Arvin and one in Weed Patch. And we have one that's still pending in Lamont, but we also have a backup with that. So we're hoping to get that going as soon as possible. Hoping all goes well, these sites had to have then meet certain requirements such as access to power and access for people to be able to go in when anytime they needed to, kind of on a random basis. So some of those were required to make that happen. And just taking a look on the map where it is we're monitoring then. So this map is they call this a heat map. So the areas that are kind of cloudy looking, the more yellow to red areas, those are areas where there were more community suggestions on where you all wanted to see the monitoring take place. And where the stars are where we are in process or in process of securing locations to put the monitoring at. So you can see the one is here at Mountain View Middle School. That one is pending approval. There is one at Sunset Middle School. They're in Weed Patch, and there is one at the Arvin CSD, which means I assume you all probably know this, but it was a little bit new to me, the Community Service District, which is where the utility for Arvin is located. And the site there is at 847 South Derby Street. So let's move on. So here is a graph, and this graph is showing why we chose this week, why we started monitoring this week. And so based on the historical data, these were the weeks that had the highest use for both compounds in particular. And so again, this is based on data from 2019 to 2021. And the monitoring timeframe is shown in red. And it starts at around week 22, which corresponds to May 27th to June 2nd. So James is right on time, being out in the field, getting the setup. And yeah, and then so he's setting it up and deploying this week, and the actual monitoring will begin on Monday, June 3rd. So coming up quickly. And then just take a quick look at the process, what this all means, like what comes first and such. So James is basically here on the left. He's deploying the monitoring, and then on Monday, beginning the actual monitoring. That all assumes that everything goes smoothly, that electric is all working and in proper order and nothing, has changed about the site. Like I said, so far, so good. The report is that things are going well. And after he has got the monitor set up and start collecting the data, that data then will go for laboratory analysis. That takes a few weeks each time one is sent in, and it'll be a continuous process throughout the 13 weeks. And then the data get fully analyzed, and they will also be performing what they call quality control checks, just to make sure that the data that they're getting makes sense and is accurate. Then the third part of this is getting the field report. So this is going to be the part that comes back to you all. And as James mentioned last time, it's going to take about 6 months to get that final report where it's fully written, quality checked, quality controlled, all the analysis that goes on with that. And so looking at approximately February of 2025 to get that field report complete. And that's really all I have to say so far. So hoping anyone needs any questions or wants to make any comments.
This is Liz. Thank you so much for the update, Michelle.
Of course.
Hopefully we do have some questions or comments that folks would like to share. We do have plenty of time for that discussion. So maybe we could give folks a moment or two to think. Yeah, Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I had two questions. The first one is, how did y'all decide on the 3 sites? Because I know there was like multiple times where we kind of chose different sites. And then the second question is, when do you expect the Mountain View monitor to be up?
So I know I have Joe on the line. I haven't seen James join us yet. Joe, I don't know if you have any information on how long before we'll know about Mountain View.
Okay, can you hear
Oh,
me?
there you are. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm struggling. So Mountain View, I guess that's the Lamont site, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We have not heard back. Right now, we're still holding out that maybe we find out by tomorrow, but our backup plan is that tomorrow we will, James will be in Arvin meeting Raul to set up at that site. And if we haven't heard back or don't have positive confirmation for the Lamont site, we will be working with Raul to get a second site in Arvin. So, you know, preferably we'd like to be at Lamont, but you know, at this point we've been not getting the positive response, and that's our backup plan. Is we still would put 3 sites out there. Just two of them would be in Lamont, in Arvin.
I see.
So
Jess.
we'll know that by tomorrow.
Great. I see Jess has her hand up.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of questions, but related to, I think, Sandra's question of why we chose these. I know, Michelle, you mentioned like the heat map, which I think is kind of the main answer of how we honed in on areas. But Joe, based on what you just described about like the difficulty of siting, can you go in a little bit as to like why you chose these exact locations? And then maybe my second part of the question is, how can we make sure if Mountain View doesn't work out that we still, I think Lamont is clearly very important, given its location and given that folks want it there, and given kind of what we know about some of the monitoring. I don't know that 2 in a smaller area in one corner is going to be as useful. And so I definitely want to make sure that, I'll just say out loud, that we will offer to continue to help. I know we have been, but like making sure we can get something up there. But to that end, like, what does that assistance look like? What information, what siting do you need? Just kind of remind us.
Okay, yeah, so I think as kind of mentioned, we need a facility that's secure, that we have access to, that has power, it has unobstructed airflow. So those are the basic things, and of course we need access. And so we have been, the Air District has been cooperating, trying to help us, giving us contacts. We reach out to those areas. We've had some positive interactions, just haven't had the follow through. So, and it's not that, I mean, we've done other studies where we've started a site after an initial one. So it's not like we're in that we're not flexible if we can't get it, if we don't get it tomorrow. But we have been trying to pursue this for some time and still haven't got that. So, you know, anything that the district community can do to help us would be much appreciated. But we do need to get access to a site, and the setup we can make that happen in a shorter time. It you know, yeah. Yeah, but you know, we went off the heat map. We knew what the community was looking for. It made a lot of sense. The areas, especially, you know, as shown in the map, it does represent the area better to have it spread out. So we clearly understand that, and that is our goal. That's what, you know, we understand that that's what the community wants, and we want that as well.
Hi, Lily.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add for context of, clearly there's exposure concerns. So to the point of the technical requirements, electricity, security, and all of those infrastructure type needs, I just also want to keep in mind that the community location where people are really does also matter too, if you're trying to get that correlation between emissions and exposure and public health outcome. In addition to, I recognize the 13 weeks is set, but there's only so much understanding we can get from a snapshot in time. So just for the consideration of the holistic picture, to please keep in mind that the location of where people are really does link that exposure component.
This is Jessica. I think that's such a, Lily brings up such a good point that was sort of why we tried to partner at the Air District with CARB, because that same logic applies to air quality in general. And so that's why we cited our locations. We tried to do it at schools because that's exposure to children that helps kind of understand. And then in the Arvin CSD, that's sort of near a populated part of the town. So that's exactly right, Lily. So that's a good reminder as we look for if needed, an alternate location, that we do keep that in mind. So hopefully we can make this work, and definitely, yeah, maybe while James is down there, he can drive over and knock on some doors, but or whatever we need to do. I know we're all eager to help as well.
Yeah, so Sandra, I hope we have answered your question thoroughly, but if you have additional, or anyone else, definitely here. All right, well, I think unless something pops up here in a moment, we're going to leave you with our contact information. You can definitely contact us at any time. Happy to have longer conversations, more one-on-one, to talk about any details you'd like.
This is Liz. Thank you so much, Michelle and Joe, and to your whole team. So it sounds like at least one of those locations is still pending, and we may find out tomorrow. So could you maybe say a little more about, I guess, how that will be communicated to the CSC, and I guess what the CSC could expect for if that location is not chosen, any feedback they could provide on that backup location?
So we can communicate with the district. I think the district probably has a better mechanism for reaching the community. So we'll communicate at the end of the day tomorrow what the status is. It turns out to be where we set up, and if we did get any more communication for the Lamont area, but we'll inform the district.
This is Jess. I can confirm that whatever DP, we'll also follow up with, I keep saying DPR, with CARB. They are the ones handling all of the monitoring. We'll follow up with Joe and his team to get that information out as soon as we know more.
Thank you, everyone. So I'll just pause again to see if there's any lingering questions or comments that have come up before we transition. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat and I don't see any hands raised. So I think we can transition and I'll pass it to Vanessa.
Great. Thanks so much, Liz. This is Vanessa. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all here. At this time, I'd like to transition to agency updates. So we have a couple of updates from the Ag Commissioner as well as DPR. At this time, would like to invite the Ag Commissioner to make the update.
I don't really have an update, but if anybody has any questions, I'm available for any questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Glenn. Are there any questions that folks would like to share or reflections? Gustavo, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Glenn Science, looks like the notification project is not happening anymore here in Kern. Will you be open to explore reviewing the buffer zones and looking for ways to improve it, the protections for the community?
I'm open to discussions if there's any new data. My position on that is that in order for me to justify making a change, there would need to be a reason for that change, similar to if there were episodes, not necessarily episodes that had a human effect, but a number of drifts or something that would necessitate such a change.
Thank you, Gustavo, for your question. What did that answer your question, or do you have any follow-up questions you'd like to share?
No, I think it's clear what his response is clear.
This is Vanessa. Thank you. Jessica, I think you went on, you unmuted for a minute. Oh, I see a couple more hands up. Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. My question for the Ag Commissioner is if with the new pesticide monitoring through CARB at the end of the 13 weeks, if there is proof that there is pesticide drift and it is affecting the community, will you then commit to sitting down with community and identifying buffer zone if the data does prove that there is pesticide drift and it is affecting the community?
So the short answer would be yes. However, the process would be if there's if some of the air monitors show that there's pesticides that are in the air, that also would be a decision that we would work hand in hand with DPR in determining why that is the case, because DPR's restrictions, monitoring, and the conditions that they have and the laws and regulations that exist based on studies, and those kinds of things shouldn't occur. So we shouldn't find high amounts of pesticides, but if we do, as I said, then I'm perfectly willing to do something to fix that.
Thank you, Sandra, for your question. Cesar, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question as to um, whether or not Glenn believes that there is an issue. And if so, why does he believe that there is not an issue? Like, what evidence has prompted him to believe so?
I'm not sure what is served by that question. I mean, if there's an issue, I want to do something to take care of it. And what I've always said is I want to rely on the science to determine what that issue is. So I'm completely 100% in favor of these monitors. As a matter of fact, I would suggest more monitors because if there's an issue, we need to deal with it.
If you like relying on the science, don't you think having a pilot project that would allow that type of science to be done here would be beneficial? I just don't understand why you would block those types of things from happening.
I don't really understand the question. The notification has nothing to do with drift. Notification just provides notice.
Right. And the reason you feel that there is no need for notification is because you feel there isn't enough drift. Is that correct?
No, not at all. The reason is that I don't think the public would utilize that in a way that would provide information that would help them. I think if you live in an area where you're worried about pesticides and you think that they're drifting onto you or causing a health problem, then you need to be proactive and do something yourself without notification is not going to prevent that.
In what way do you think it will be used? I understand what way you think we should be using it, but what do you think is the reaction that is preventing you from feeling confident that people can use this information without reacting in the way that you fear they may react, right? I just don't understand what reaction you fear may prompt to that.
Sorry, really quickly before you answer him, Glenn, please, yeah, answer Cesar's question. I do want to be clear that just, I think for the sake, and I definitely want to keep questions coming. I think I appreciate Glenn being here, but I think talking a little bit differently, we know notifications are coming and we know they're happening. I think there's a difference kind of talking about what's going to happen and what is it being supported by the agencies here, and then like people's personal opinions about what should happen. So I, happy to have Glenn continue to answer questions, but if we can just kind of stay on track, like pesticide notifications are coming, whether individuals believe they should or not. So that's, I think, a helpful step forward. And so if we can just kind of keep the line of questioning as to kind of policy and rather than like some of the opinion questions, Cesar, if that's helpful. And Glenn, please continue if however you want to respond, and then we can go to Bianca, if that's okay.
No, I appreciate that. And I think we can leave my answer with your answer.
Thank you for that response.
Thank you, Cesar, for your question. Bianca, please go ahead.
I actually have a follow-up with Glenn. I actually got drifted on a couple weeks ago as I was driving outside of Arvin, and I'm not sure if you got that report, Glenn, where your biologist actually gave me a couple questions and a lot of remarks of disregarding that I got drifted on, and there's the physical evidence where I actually got drifted on. My car got drifted on. I have video, I have the report. So saying those type of remarks are heartbreaking because we did see a difference coming from you, that you were wanting to do some changes in our community and wanting to work with us. And for saying things like we have to proactively do something, we are doing our steps to prevent those type of drifts to happen in our community and our homes and in our area. But going back to the drift incident, the biologist actually told me that it depends how the drift happens. They'll send it out to DPR, and it's not even a for sure things after taking the samples and things like that. So for community members, if they do report incidents like this, to get that type of remark. It's downplaying that community are doing their part in testing these type of drift incidents. I fortunately I took video immediately. I was able to park on the side of the road, waited until your staff came in. It was 3 hours that I waited on the side of the road until an officer came out to me. I called 3 times to your office department. So for you to tell us that we have to proactively do things, that does not concur to what your standards are in reporting drift incidents. If I had to wait 3 hours as an individual, as a resident, what is going to happen to community members that work in these communities and that have to move immediately when there's drift incidents? So I was really hoping to hear something else coming from, like, maybe making the buffer zones longer or trying to work with us. But hearing those type of remarks coming from you are heartbreaking, because we did see some changes coming from you. Towards the end of the notification, we wanted to see something different coming from you, and to hear that type of comments, it's like we lose faith in what the Ag Commissioner represents, that is there for public safety, public health, and you're not doing that. So I just want to leave it up to that.
I just wanted to uplift one thing that I heard from Bianca about the drift into homes and possibly, thinking about some of the other work that our agencies have done together. The Fresca Mujeres study, where they were looking at some of the infiltration of air pollutants through swamp coolers in the Central Valley. And I know it not specifically in Arvin, Lamont, but some of those concerns I think are work that could be potentially further continued or bridged, given resources and alignment. And so, I hear, Bianca, your concerns about drift into residences, and clearly we can't move those. And so maybe the monitoring in, proximity to residences is something that can be discussed in addition to the sensitive receptor sites like schools. And I think that might help add to the information that it sounds like you're seeking.
Thanks, Bianca, and thanks, Lily, for your response. Bianca, do you have any follow-up comments or questions?
My response is that we were looking for something from the Ag Commissioner's office, or some type of work that we're able to collaborate and work together. But for him just remarking the buffer zones and notification is not happening, so it has to go through the statewide, we understand the whole process. But if you close the doors on us at the moment that we're knocking at your door, how do you expect us to work together if you're not willing to work with us? So for me personally, I felt it. I felt the drift happening, and how your department, how your department disregarded my concern as a resident, as a citizen, was heartbreaking. And I don't know, you have to go back to your personnel and talk to them and letting them know how to interact with community members, because it's not how you're supposed to talk to community members the way I felt. So I'm just letting you know, as a resident and as a concerned resident, it was awful to have that happen. And being disremarked on my drift incident.
Bianca, if you have a problem with the way that my office dealt with you, then please submit a complaint form. Submit a complaint to my office specifically about that inspector, and specifically about what you felt was wrong about the way that you were treated. I do think because I know the situation. I do think that you are misrepresenting the situation. But that being said, if you have a legitimate complaint, please submit a complaint.
This is Liz. I just want to maybe step in and just acknowledge that this is a very serious conversation, and we have a lot of folks who are joining these meetings who, you know, live in these communities and do have these very real, direct experiences with pesticides. And I think it's important to, acknowledge the reality of the lived experiences that folks share in this space, and take it at, you know, the value that folks are sharing with us. And just to address Bianca, it sounds like there was perhaps an action item there to submit a complaint, and we can definitely note that down. And I also want to mention that we do appreciate you sharing in this space. It does support this process of collaboration, and this is why we're all here. Even though these conversations are really difficult, they do need to happen, and we do need to learn how to continue working through that. So Glenn, I also do appreciate you being here and responding to questions and taking down notes. And so just want to acknowledge all of that. I know we have another hand up, so we can go to Gustavo.
Yeah, just want to clarify from my point of view to Jessica's comment. I think when we say, you know, personal points of view, it's difficult for me to understand because, you know, if you were referring to, you know, Cesar's point of view, his comments, or Glenn's points of view, I think for me, you know, and I also share mine, you know, it's and, you know, I asked Glenn, you know, if he was willing to do that. In my opinion, is his point of view is that, you know, he believes that there is no issue to deal with. To me, that's his point of view. For me, my point of view is that there are ways that we can improve the buffer zones, you know. And, you know, I always try to be respectful. I don't want to be disrespectful of no one, but I think if your comment, Jessica, I believe may discourage other people, because if other people want to make comments, if we tell them that it's only their point of view, personal point of view, I don't think that's going to encourage people, you know. As I mentioned, you know, I think there are ways to improve, you know, the buffer zones. I understand, you know, where Glenn is standing. I respect where he is, you know. Moving forward, I think we'll find ways how to advocate respectfully. But I think each of us are giving our point of view, and I just want to be sure, you know, that and, you know, some of us may not be the best in communicating what we are trying to explain, but, you know, I think part of the agreements is, you know, trying to understand, you know, the best intent of people and trying to understand their points of view, not just getting offended for some comments, but what the person is trying to say, you know. Just want to mention that, you know, please don't discourage people from participating.
This is Jessica, and thanks, Gustavo. And I apologize if I came off that way. I was not referring to any individual who was asking questions. I was just remarking that the question, although valid, this question seemed like they were asking less about the facts on the ground and more about that person, like about Glenn's opinions after he'd already shared them and sort of just reacting. I apologize. I think everyone's point of view, and I didn't mean to say the term point of view. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about differences in lived experiences and points of view and sharing stories. So I apologize. I did not mean to stop anyone from sharing. I just meant that it felt like to be honest, that back and forth a little bit was just getting to a level that I just wanted to make sure that we were bringing it back to like the facts and individuals' experiences, not necessarily asking each person sort of opinions on something, regardless of what's actually happening, if that makes sense. So sorry that I didn't mean to come off that way. I was just trying to make sure that that particular line of questioning didn't feel like any one person on either side was being disrespected. And so I appreciate you giving me that opportunity to clarify everyone's point of view and opinion. That is exactly why we're here. Thank you.
This is Vanessa. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you so much, Gustavo, for being courageous and sharing your lived experience and also stating your concerns. They're definitely valid ones, and also appreciate you bringing up the group agreements, one of which is to assume the best intent of folks and attack the problem, not the person. And speaking of lived experiences, I also want to shed light on Cesar's comments, which are included in the chat. So Cesar said on the 25th of April, there was a drift in the Mexican colony as well. The resident asked for a swab of the stop sign on the corner. It had happened because she had driven around. Could I ask if a swab was taken of the stop sign like the reporting party asked for? Cesar, I want to open the floor up for you in case you'd like to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So somebody had made a report to the Arvin network about a pesticide drift in the Mexican colony. And they told me and also the person that they connected with from the Ag Commissioner's office that they wanted the stop sign to be swabbed because it happened while they were in their car, stopped at the stop sign, and they drove to Bakersfield and back. So they thought that they would get a better quality sample from the stop sign. And I just want to make sure that, if we're going to be doing things right, let's, take the sample from a place that's not compromised from, being driven around in something that was stationary in there whenever the drift happened. And I'm interested to know if that swab was taken and not just from the windshield, but also from the stop sign.
So obviously I can't, without specifics, I think you well know, Cesar, that, if you were in contact with my deputy, Brian, from our office, which I suspect that you were, to report that, you're welcome to call him directly and ask him what we did when we went out. I don't know specifically because I didn't go out and do it. However, I would like to say that our investigative techniques are based on guidelines and training that we have from DPR. And that's what we take into account when we're out in the field. We're not going to be dictated to about where to take a sample. We take samples uniformly, depending on the situation, and our guidelines from DPR determine where we take those samples and what samples we take, as well as what samples we submit to the lab for testing. But if you would like an update or you have these questions, you're welcome to call Brian in my office and he'll update you on exactly what happened.
Okay. And I wonder if any of those DPR guidelines would prevent you from taking a swab at that stop sign.
I wonder too.
Thank you, Cesar. Bianca, I see you have your hand raised.
I wanted to do a follow-up statement to Glenn. One of his biologists that was taking the sample out of my car when I got drifted on, literally her statement was, we don't know if the sample will be received by DPR. That is a discouragement for community members. They asked me so many questions that when did I wash my car? Where did I drive through? Like all these type of questions that as a community member, if I was in their community, in a community member's shoes, that is hard. It's hard to understand. And even to write a statement on the type of location. So I would like to know, I would also like to follow up on the testing for the stop sign, because that is a non-movable thing. And I would like to know if they did it and if they sent the sample out, because They had to go through your department. It was a couple days until I submitted the video and I showed actual drift happening at the moment, and a lot of cars being drifted on. And until they saw the video, that's when they decided to send the sample to DPR. It wasn't before, it was right after I submitted the video. So I think your department should do a better job in responding to drift incidents. And I would like to do the follow-up also.
So I'm confused. You're talking about it. Are you talking about a stop sign in your situation, or in the situation that Cesar had mentioned?
On the stop sign that Cesar mentioned, because I know that stop sign and I've seen it.
Can call our office, as I said. Cesar can call our office and talk to Brian and see what we did in that situation. And it's not true that we consulted with, we may or may not send samples. Sometimes we take samples, and after we consult with DPR, they decide that some of the samples are not necessary, or only one is necessary, or various things go into the determination of when we decide to send samples. And it's not really our decision, it's really DPR's decision. But we consult with them about the samples that we're going to take. It's not the case that we decided to send samples. We didn't decide in the field to send the samples. We decided in the field to take samples in your case. And it wasn't upon seeing the video that we decided to do that. It was when your story changed. Initially, when you contacted us, you specifically said several times that you had not felt or seen any drift. But at some point in the interview, you changed to saying that you saw drift and it was drifted onto you. That's when we made the decision to take the samples, because you said that you had been drifted on. Earlier, you had not. So that's why we decided to take the samples.
My story did not change since the beginning. It was always the same. I even took a video. I did a U-turn. I didn't move from the location. I was there waiting for your inspector to come out. So my story did not change. I wanted to see if they did a sample, because I actually took a video where the pilots from the drift did not stop. It continued drifting into the road. And multiple occasions, as I was driving towards it, as I did a U-turn, and I took the video. I have everything. Everything has been the same consistency since the beginning, because as I mentioned to you, I gave the remark of being drifted on, but nobody took me serious until I told them I have a actual sample. My car got drifted on. You see the sparks of the water, of the drift happening to my vehicle. So there's no changes on my story. Everything has been consistent since the beginning.
Okay, I think generally, I'm not sure what is served by this type of discussion. These are issues that you're welcome, as I've told you multiple times, you're welcome to come into my office and discuss. As you're a party to this investigation, you're welcome to call and get updates on the investigation and how it progresses. So we're completely open about that. And I also want to support my inspectors, because we have some of the best inspectors in the state. And I don't really appreciate talking bad about my inspectors and saying that they're doing something incorrect, when in fact they're following the protocols that DPR has outlined.
This is Vanessa. Jessica, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Jessica. I wonder if, as an action item, I know we talked earlier about having a setting some future agenda items. I know sustainable pest management was one of them. I know, Glenn, we did have your inspection team several meetings ago, but I wonder if it's worthwhile, whether it's our next meeting or, a follow-up meeting, depending on how we want to divvy up all the CERT commitments, to just do that same presentation. I know we had some folks that are kind of the on-the-ground inspector types from your office, and maybe some of these questions about timing and sample send-off, maybe we can have a deeper discussion, just so that we're all on the same page as to the follow-up. And even just what you mentioned, Glenn, about people, following up directly with the office maybe isn't clear to folks. And so we could just maybe make sure that we have a presentation and at our next or some follow-up meeting, if that works for all of you, and just kind of checking in with Bianca, Glenn, others, if that feels right.
Well, generally I'm in favor of that. However, based on how my inspector was treated the last time, which wasn't really that long ago, I'm loath to agree to that again. I think they were getting a lot of questions, which were policy questions, and not really questions about taking samples or what their inspections, even though the presentation was about how they conduct inspections and take samples. The follow-up questions were not about that. So I don't know really what is served by that. I'm willing to think about it again, but as I said, I want to protect, I don't like to be attacked myself, but it's really my job to be attacked if anyone's going to be attacked. I don't want my inspectors to be attacked when they're just here to provide information.
This is Liz. Thank you. And Glenn, I just want to acknowledge what you shared and that folks on your team felt attacked, and that's definitely not what we want to have in this space from anybody. We all want to treat each other with respect. I would maybe suggest or encourage you to encourage your team to maybe give it another shot. I think this would be a really important conversation just based on everything the CSC has shared and all of the questions that have come up. I think just what often happens with science and the impact of all of these things on people, there's not that much trust, and that has to be built over time, and that's partially done through meetings like this and just working with each other and overcoming maybe those communication issues or other challenges. So I think it's really important for everybody to push past incidents like that and come back together to try to find solutions. It does just sound like maybe there are some miscommunications happening here, and I think there are certainly questions that are specific to inspections, and it sounds like your inspectors could answer some of these, important questions that are coming up and help clarify and build that trust. It just sounds like there are different experiences happening with the same issue, and that's very common. And so we just want to normalize that and continue to encourage folks to step back into this space. And Maria, I see your hand is up. I just want to note Glenn is on the phone, and so anybody who's speaking in Spanish, he won't be able to hear. So we will have perhaps one of our interpreters. I think we can do that after you speak, Maria. Maybe we can invite one of our interpreters to share so Glenn can hear. So go ahead, Maria.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I only wanted to comment. This is not about attacking anyone or just attack anyone. I think that we as community, I'm speaking as a member of Arvin community. I live here in Arvin, and sometimes we're asking ourselves, I ask myself these questions. There are days when I go outside my house or I go outside on the street and I start with allergy, a lot of allergy, it's a lot. And the questions that are we asking ourselves is, what is it that you are spraying on the fields? What pesticides you're spraying the fields to make us have these reactions? This is way too much, and I have noticed it because I know that we know our body and our system, and I have noticed during these days, every time I go out, my throat starts closing up, and I still and I feel this water coming down my nose, and I can control it. And I come to my house, I put the filter that the district donated to us, and I turn it on, and I sit down, and my body starts reacting better. So those are the questions as a member, as a citizen, as a community member. I think we ask ourselves, and that's why we wanted the notifications, because with these notifications, if they tell us that the pesticide they're spraying is one of the strongest, I'm gonna try not to go out, because I know that during those times they're spraying that pesticide, and for my health, it'll be harmful. So right now, we don't know. I have to go to the store or to the bank or just outside my house in the yard. And I'm not exaggerating. Right now, I came to just water my plants, and I came in with my throat, with itching, and it is way too much. We are not trying to fight or attacking anybody. This is about that we as citizens and residents, we can just talk about those concerns. And last week, we buried this lady. She died from cancer. So that worries me. The community worries about that, and we all worry about that. And I have said that in many occasions. My children have told me that, Mom, you need to leave because that's an area that's very contaminated. But I don't think that that is the answer. Maybe I'm gonna leave my house, I'm gonna sell my house, and I'm gonna leave. No, we want to work here, we want to be here, and that's why I'm in this group and I'm in the 617, because we are trying to look for solutions. We don't want to fight. We don't want to fight with anybody. We don't want to attack anybody. It's just that when I'm talking with an agency or the ag commissioner and they send an inspector, we don't want to fight. I just want to tell them what's happening. So this person tries to look for a solution. Maybe just look for a solution, not trying to attack each other. I think that we have to remain calm, and we have to think about that. That's why we are here in this program 617, because we're looking for solutions so we can lower our pollution from our communities, not to fight. And that is my comment. And hopefully we can continue moving forward, just looking for solutions, no problems, solutions for the community. And thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope that this comment that I just made, you can tell it to the commissioner, because nobody wants to fight. Thank you.
This is Liz. I just want to pause. I have my own translated interpretation that I just jotted down, but Tanya or Diana, before I do that, I'm wondering if either of you can quickly provide an interpretation, but if not, I will do that.
Yeah, the thing is that we are in the channel, so he won't be able to hear us because he's on the phone.
Okay, that makes sense. I will quickly share Maria's comment. And thank you so much, Maria, for sharing. And thank you, everyone, and Glenn, for your patience. So Maria shared, she is, and I apologize if I get anything wrong. I'm also summarizing. So Maria is a resident in Arvin, and many residents experience a lot of allergies and symptoms that are like allergies. People here are not trying to attack anybody. Folks are just asking questions about what pesticides are being sprayed into the fields to even have these reactions. People who live here know their bodies and they know their systems. They notice when there's a spray day, if they go outside, they have an allergic reaction. Maria has experienced her throat closing up, kind of water coming down her nose. Even when using filters from the air district sitting inside, her body does start to feel a little better. And so that's why the community members ask these questions and want these notifications, because it helps them determine what pesticides are being sprayed, so they can determine the risk for themselves and, according to their health, whether or not they should go outside. They do not intend to fight anybody or attack, and this is a space for residents to talk about their concerns. Maria also mentioned that the community just buried someone last week who died from cancer. And so the community worries about this in a lot of occasions. And the answer isn't just to leave these places because they're contaminated. They don't want to sell their houses and move away. They want to live in this community. And that's why Maria and others are in this group. They want to look for solutions. They don't want to fight. They don't want to attack anybody. And that when they're talking with an agency and the inspectors, again, they don't want to fight, but just want to explain what's happening so that we can look for solutions. And so Maria ended saying, let's look for solutions and not attack each other. Let's remain calm and think about how we can lower pollution in our communities. And hopefully we can continue looking forward for solutions and not problems. And she thanked everybody and Glenn, you specifically, for listening. And that was Maria's comment. I'll give maybe Maria a chance to make any edits if I captured anything wrong.
No. No. I think that the message is there. And I know that when you're translating, you cannot say word by word, but I feel that the message that I gave is that. Thank you. Thank you that you are hearing us, and thank you for everything that you are doing. And we are working so we can do something for the community. And what else can I say? And thank you for hearing us, and let's continue moving forward with this program that is going to help us help various communities. We have to work a lot. We have to work a lot. Agencies with community and community with agencies all together. Thank you.
I'd like to say that I completely agree with the points that Maria made. And specifically with regard to notification, as everyone well knows, that's coming. So that will be in existence next year, at the beginning of the year in the first quarter, according to DPR's timeline. And the air monitors, the whole purpose of the air monitors is exactly that, to find out what is in the air. And if there's a problem, DPR and CARB and my office will find a common ground to do something to try and mitigate the issue.
This is Vanessa. Thanks so much, Glenn, for your response. Are there any other reflections that folks would like to share related to today's conversation? Not seeing anything, so I see that we have an agency update from DPR, and if folks don't have anything else to share, I'd like to transition to that update. So DPR, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. This is Maziar from DPR. Actually, we don't have any update, but we are here to answer any question that your community might have.
I think as an action, sorry, I forgot to raise my hand. Can I make a statement?
Yes,
Comment?
Please go for it, Bianca.
As an action item, I would like to get DPR. I heard the Ag Commissioner mention that it depends on DPR response or a DPR's inspection done through the Ag Commissioners if they decide to sample any drift incidents. I would like to have some information from DPR. What's the criteria in receiving samples from Ag Commissioners? If they could send it over via mail or email, it would be nice to see what's your criteria as in DPR agent or as a seed agency to see which sample is acceptable. It's just my personal, I would like to know what it is and if DPR could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Mazia. Thank you, Bianca. I wanted to leave that one for the end. That yes, that's we will do that. I will reach out to our enforcement people to inquire about what they know, and then if we can put something together that to be shared with the community in terms of their procedure, in terms of the guideline that Glenn mentioned, and how they would handle these kind of incidents on their part. I will reach out to the enforcement. We'll talk about it, and if there's anything that we can put together, we will do it and share with the air district to be shared with the community.
Thank you, Bianca, for your question. And we've included that action item in the list of action items for today. Are there any other questions or comments that folks have for DPR? All right, this is Vanessa. I am not seeing any hands raised. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so we can go ahead and move on to opening the floor for comments and suggestions and next steps. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight and for your willingness to engage in this thoughtful conversation to help address your community's concerns around air quality. And I also really appreciate everyone sharing their lived experiences. And Maria, you had mentioned something earlier today that resonated with me, which was alluding to the fact that not everyone can leave the area where they're at to find a place that has better air quality. And I think that really alludes to the purpose of the AB 617 program, which is to make sure that regardless of where you live in California, that you have access to air quality that is more than is acceptable. And does that also mean that you are prone to like chronic disease or illness? Everyone has a right to clean air. And I think what you shared is really telling of that, and it really helps ground us in the work that we're doing today. So really want to appreciate for what you shared as well as what other folks have shared today. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for final comments before we review today's action items. So if you have any lingering questions or comments or reflections, I really invite anyone to go ahead and raise your hand and share out, or if you feel more comfortable sharing out in the chat, please feel free to do that. I'll give everyone a moment in case they're thinking of something to share. I'm not seeing anything at this time. If you think of anything, feel free to raise your hand or comment in the chat. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so you all can see the action items that we have for today. I would like to say that at times we are rushing to take notes and jot down action items. So if we wrote down something that is not representative of what your request was or what you want to see done, we do apologize, and definitely encourage you to let us know if you want something amended or if you want something added to the list. So we have 3 action items for tonight. The first one is CARB will communicate Lamont monitoring installation status with the Air District by the end of the day tomorrow, so that the Air District can share info on this status with the CSC. For the second action item, it is the Air District will follow up with the Ag Commissioner about presenting on the procedure for inspections for pesticide complaints. And the third action item for today is that DPR will provide a presentation regarding criteria related to receiving samples from the Ag Commissioner. Oh, Mazia, I see you were unmuted. Please go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that it may be a presentation, or as Bianca asked, there could be that some information get together as part of an email. So there would be an update from us, but the format of that update we'll basically talk internally to see what would be the best format to present those information.
Thank you, Mazia. I appreciate that. Are there any amendments that people would like to make, or any changes, any changes to the action items, or any action items that we missed that you'd like to see? I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. Now that we're done with the review of the action items, I'd like to share some information about the next pesticide subcommittee meeting. So the date is still to be determined, but the Air District will be following up soon with more information on that date. At this time, I'd like to invite our community co-leads, Bianca and Cesar, to share any closing remarks before we close up today's meeting.
Just a big thank you to everyone that participated, and happy to hear some community voices.
Thank you, Cesar. No pressure, but Bianca wanted to see if you also had something to share.
No, I just wanted to thank everybody that's been here, and echoing what Maria was mentioning, that we're here to work together, not to fight, and that we want a safer space for our families, for our community, and for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. Next, I'd like to invite the Air District to share closing remarks.
Thank you. I think Cesar and Bianca said it well. I do appreciate that this is a platform for some of these tough discussions. And I think Maria just perfectly summed up why we're here and why we're doing this work. I also want to thank CARB for the work that's happening as we speak. And I look forward to hearing that update. I know folks are really eager, especially on the status of that Lamont placement. So I definitely want to make sure we get that out to folks. But in reality, a lot, I think, of great discussion today, and a lot of great progress we've been making on the SERP. So thank you all.
This is Vanessa. Thanks, Jessica, for those closing remarks. And once again, thanks everyone for being here. I know that you all probably have very busy schedules. I sincerely hope that you are able to do something special for yourself and relax this evening, do something to unwind. Once again, thanks for being here and for your continued engagement. And I look forward to seeing you at future meetings. I hope you all have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Good night.
Thank you, Unai.
Buenas